I think we got just about everybody. Anybody not running for office, raise your hand. Well, there's a couple that are thinking about it. I know y'all didn't come out to hear a long speech. Let me see if I can give you a short one. I will try to do that. I don't promise I'll do that. Betty Nixon's worked with me so long, bless her heart. She's had to listen to all my speeches. For years she got paid for it. Now she doesn't even have to do it. Appreciate you being here. The fellow named Cotton Ivy used to be the Commissioner of Agriculture, used to be in the legislature. Some of you may have heard him. He also used to be on the Grand Ole Opry on occasion. And Cotton tells a story about going to East Tennessee, and there was a sheriff running for re-election. And Cotton said, "Sheriff, how's it going?" He said, "Cotton, it's going terrible, terrible," which is East Tennessee for terrible, terrible. And he said, "Well, what's the matter, Cotton?" And Cotton said, "Well, Sheriff, I don't understand. What's the problem?" He said, "Cotton, they're telling lies about me." Cotton thought about that a minute. He said, "Sheriff, you've been in this politics a while. You know they sometimes do that." He said, "Cotton, you don't understand. Some of these lies they can prove." Look at all these judges here. For some reason, that just came to mind. As the son of a judge and somebody who's married to a claims commissioner, it just somehow bubbled up. But let me tell you, you look around Tennessee, not so much in Nashville, because y'all have taken care of business here in Nashville better than any place in the state. But you look around the rest of Tennessee, and on election night last year, we had a great night as Americans and a tough night as Tennesseans.
Right.
And you look around the state and you see people that used to have great representatives and Democratic representatives, and now you've got folks who are, well, I'm sure their mothers love them. And their mothers should love them. And I'm trying to love them, but it's hard. They're straining every good bone in me sometimes. We've replaced, Tennessee used to get publicity nationally for being a great place to bring a business. I had a Nashville businessman tell me the other day he thought the greatest threat to Nashville and Tennessee's economic future was the Tennessee legislature. And he wasn't kidding.
Amen.
I mean, we used to get national publicity for the things that were going on in Tennessee in terms of education reform and economic development and what we were doing with this state. Now we get national publicity. Colbert ought to send us a check every month. It's unbelievable how much publicity the legislature's managed to get, not from newsworthy events, but from crazies. A lot of Tennesseans are conservative, but they're not crazy. This bunch at the legislature, now they're certifiable. I mean, I know Judge Harrington used to deal with some of those issues. I don't know who deals with it now, but there's a real, you can just set up shop in the Capitol building right now, I believe, and do one commitment hearing after another. They're acting crazy. I looked at the directory the other night, first year I went to the legislature, and 33 senators. There were 2 that were out there on that right end of the spectrum, just kind of off the charts. And the other 31 were somewhere between conservative and liberal, but all of them were rational. Now the majority of the legislature, God bless them, as we say here in the South, the majority of the legislature, they're just radical. They're reactionary. Ladies and gentlemen, when I look at what's going on and some of the extremism, it upsets me. And when I think about it, though, it's part of what gives me hope. It's part of what gives me hope. I believe that the further they go, the more extreme they are, the further they swing that pendulum out, the faster it's going to come back to the center. I believe that with all my heart. I do believe that. I look at the national demographics, and I look what's happening as Tennessee changes, and there are fewer and fewer folks that look like me, and more folks who are diverse in this state, just like they are in this nation. And with each change in this population, it moves more our direction. I heard a Republican politico say the other night on television, he said when Reagan was president, the Republicans' best demographic was people under 30. He said today, it is the Democrats' best demographic. This bunch down there in Washington, they're what my sons, I've got 3 sons, 22, 22, and 19. Keep us in your prayers. This bunch in Washington and in Nashville, at the legislature, are what my sons call haters. If I get sometimes, I get out of line, I say something I shouldn't say, Daddy, don't be a hater. This bunch is a bunch of haters. And this younger generation, I promise you, by and large, most of them, they're not haters. They're not worried about if you don't think exactly like they do, look exactly like they do, worship exactly like you do. They're not worried if you don't love a little different, or maybe head a little different direction. They are not haters. They are lovers. They are people who respect other people and who care about one another. And that's part of why I have hope, and part of why I think it's moving this direction. If you look at what's going on in this state right now, the mayors of the 7 largest cities in this state, with Andy Burke's election in Chattanooga, now the mayors of the 7 largest cities in the state are all Democratic mayors. When you look at what happened, the Republicans drew the lines here in Davidson County. They drew them to pick up 2 seats. They lost 1 seat. And that's what happened in the last election. Y'all took care of business. A lot of people in this room donated, contributed, worked, helped, and we elected Democrats here. And we can do it all over the state. We did not get in this ditch in 1 cycle. We will not get out of it in 1 cycle. But I believe with all my heart that we're going to get out of it if we work and are faithful and devout in our efforts, that our efforts will be rewarded and we will move this state in the right direction. Tennesseans may be conservative, but they are not crazy. And if we tell the truth, if we tell it long enough, loud enough, true enough, Tennesseans will come to understand that. And they'll realize that there's no sense in voting for a party that has declared a war on women, that thinks, and they literally voted this way, thinks that even if a woman's life is endangered by a pregnancy, she should not be allowed to save her own life. But that's what they voted on. And next year, 2014, on the ballot, you'll be voting on that proposition. Whether any state constitutional protection for a woman to make a decision about whether to end a pregnancy, whether there will be any state constitutional protection left. Now, they worded it carefully, craftily, and deceptively. But the bottom line is that constitutional amendment would remove any state constitutional protection for a woman to make a decision, even if she's the victim of rape, even if it's a 12-year-old girl the victim of incest, even if it's a woman who has cancer and whose life is threatened by that pregnancy. They have declared war on women. You saw what they tried to do in terms of any sort of taking into consideration, any sort of affirmative action or taking into consideration the differences among us in higher education. They're not through with that. They'll come back with that, and they'll come with that again. They have declared war on women. They declared war on workers. Now, Your Honors, respectfully, I stand on both sides of the courtroom. The last time I was in the courtroom, I represented a company that I've represented for 20-something years. We thought the plaintiff's lawyer was a little greedy. We thought he was asking for about 7 times more than the case was worth. The judge thought he was asking for 8 times more than the case was worth. He got a little greedy. The time before that, when I was representing a worker in a comp case, I represented a widow. Her husband worked at a place 18 years, worked there 45 hours a week. The last week he worked there, and the employer said, "Not my employee." And I represented that widow after he was crushed and killed in the sawmill. I stand on both sides of the courtroom, but I'm telling you, whether you're plaintiff-oriented, defense-oriented, more concerned about employers or employees, what has been done by this legislature is an absolute travesty. It is wrong, it's immoral, and what they're seeking to do is to shift from business responsibility to social responsibility. They want to move it from the business sheet to all of us to pay the taxes to take care of folks when they're maimed and injured and their families are left destitute. They're trying to put it on us as taxpayers and take it off their sheets, and that is just wrong. They have declared war on workers, and they've declared war on public schools. Now, I'm biased on this, and we may not all be exactly in the same place, but I would tell you, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think it's right that you take public tax dollars and take them out of the public schools. They're not talking about putting more money in. They're talking about taking away from public schools and then subsidizing segregation academies and sectarian schools. And that's not right. With every step they take, every move they make, some of y'all remember that.
We'll be watching them. We'll be watching them.
We are going to be watching them. We are going to be watching them. And Tennesseans will be watching them. If we tell the truth about what they're doing, ladies and gentlemen, if we speak that truth loud enough and clear enough and strong enough, and with all the passion that we should feel, because we do love our neighbors as ourselves, and we do believe in justice, and we believe Dr. King was right, that the arc of the universe is long, but it does bend toward justice. If we do what we ought to do, this state will move back in the direction it ought to move. And the crazier they get, the quicker it's going to come if we do what we ought to do. I believe that with all my heart. I would not be doing this job as hard as I'm trying to do it right now if I didn't believe that. I wouldn't be giving 2 years to this. Quite frankly, I thought I was going to go out and make a lot of money, and And I'm not complaining, but but when I saw what they were doing, I couldn't do anything else. I just couldn't do any other.